Hello, everybody. Grant Hunter here with another Product Growth Leaders topic of the week. Steve and I just last week recorded a podcast with JJ Rory, who she's got a book coming out, great product management thought leader. And one of the questions she asked Steve and I on the podcast was about, what do we see as like sort of the big challenges we're facing moving into the future? And I'm like, ooh, that would be a good topic for topic of the week. I mean, Steve, wasn't that a fun conversation?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think we all had an equal amount of time to talk, so it worked out pretty well.
And we'll try to do this on this and give us an equal amount of time to talk. What a great panel we have today. Almost an all-star panel, you could call it. We've got Jason Vincelette. It's been a while, but it's good to have you on. Wong, Joy McCaffrey, and Cory Brian. And we're going to be talking about this, the biggest challenge to the practice of product management. On Monday, we put the question in the panel. We said, what are the biggest challenges for the practice of product management to overcome? And I felt like old was new again. Everything was back in alignment because the first person to answer on Monday was Jason. Jason, several, but first you'd like to talk about the path from higher education to job placement. So you see one of the biggest problems is we're trying to make this a practice, professionalize the role, yet there's no real path through education to get there. Talk to me about what you're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I've had another conversation even today on LinkedIn about this. And I feel like experienced product leaders are accepting the fact that there's a gap between higher education and entry into product management. Mm-hmm. And it's an accepted gap. And I don't accept it. And I think that talking to college students, which we should be doing as a product manager, we should also be asking them questions. They're part of us, right? They want to be product managers. They see the passion in it. They see it in the market. They see it in technology. Like they know about this role that's not accessible to them, and they're not learning things specifically in college for this. And as leaders, we should be talking to universities and saying, listen, if I was going to hire an entry-level product manager or product owner, these are the skills I would need. And you'd be surprised that they're already teaching a lot of those things. And a lot of that is inside of management information systems or a little bit of journalism. So perhaps they can get a concentration or something.
Anthropology.
Yeah. We talked about a lot of those in this program. So I think it's just, to me, it's no longer acceptable for us to say that product manager is something that you have to have after you have X amount of years of experience. Because if you look at what people are looking for jobs, recruiters, they're looking for 1 to 2 years of experience in order to entry-level product owner or product management. And so that means you can have a comparable amount of education, right? That's kind of like, I think we're going to keep growing that gap if that's what we need to do, if that's the rhetoric in this specific career, is that you have to be in the career for a long time, X amount of time with X amount of experience that's undefined in order to become a product manager. And then you're just going to lose these intelligent people. So I'm very passionate about this. Sorry about that.
I get it. I mean, you're seeing it in the MBA program or the master's level, right? Carnegie Mellon has a master's in product management. Harvard is doing a program with Melissa Perry. There's a product strategy program at Northwestern. JJ Rory, who I mentioned earlier, is doing some stuff at Johns Hopkins. So you're starting to see it come into the master's level. Mm-hmm. I got a freshman in college and a senior in high school, and I can't imagine my kids. Well, actually, my kids, because of what I do, are like, I don't want to do product management. Right? I wonder if undergraduate is too early. That being said, they have it for merchandising and they have it for accounting. For both kids, I've told them to go liberal arts, to go pursue something, because you don't have to have, you mentioned journalism, we brought up anthropology. There are a lot of, anything that gives you critical thinking and curiosity, I think could be a great format. Maybe it's not a dedicated program, but we need to do a better job making people aware. High schools, when they talk about career pathing, I doubt product management ever comes up. It's sales, it's marketing, it's advertising, it's accounting, it's engineering. Product management maybe what we need to do is to get better awareness of this role, this important role, and have other people doing about it. What do you think, Steve?
Well, I got stuck on something earlier, and that is the insistence, I think, of hiring managers saying, I must hire somebody with experience because they're sure not going to get any from me. I mean, you're not going to get any training around here. We're not going to do any professional development. I need somebody who can hit the ground running and knows this stuff. And some of that may actually be because the VPs don't know this stuff. I mean, I've been surprised at how many VPs I encounter who have no product management experience, and yet also don't set up mentoring programs, and they also don't send them off to training. So, you know, it's Lord of the Flies. You know, it's just people saying, well, I guess I'll do whatever needs doing. But, you know, most of the jobs, no, all of the jobs that I have had, no one in my college had ever heard of. Right. I mean, in general, I think college has a very narrow perspective on what jobs are available, which is basically professor or other or lesser positions, you know, seems to be their orientation. But I am impressed at the number, to Jason's point, the number of schools I hear that are expanding their scope beyond academia. And yet, you know, it's a two-way street. It'd be nice if we were getting product management qualified people out of college, but it would also be nice if the hiring managers weren't so busy looking for the purple squirrel, you know, that ideal candidate who will work for peanuts.
Wouldn't that be a purple elephant?
Squirrels eat nuts.
Okay.
It's Joy.
Thank you, Joy. She's our fact checker today. I'd like to give this education thing, you know, we've heard it in some other places, we're seeing it. I'd like to give the rest, before we move on to some of the answers, and we got answers from the rest of you, I'd like to hear. But what do you think? You know, what do we need to do as product professionals to help make this happen? Cory.
The first thing that comes to my mind is make things with other people. I don't care what it is. If it's you and a developer, if it's you know, with a Python script figuring out how to make anything, really, just make something and see how it goes. That practice of iteration and learning how to make things and learning how to work with others to make things is where I would want to see more focus than go to Harvard, get an MBA in product management. Mm-hmm. Because we've seen it too many times where people come out of these big business schools with these large degrees and they have no idea what the hell they're doing because they have no practical experience. I'd much rather see practical experience than theoretical.
Well, they come out of these big schools and have no idea what they're doing and go to McKinsey and get charged $5,000 a day.
They have no idea what the hell they're doing either.
And then they get the executive job and still have no idea what they're doing. So I like that idea because potentially you could start creating, like, I'm thinking of the Lego innovation stuff they have. You could start creating things where people can go find a problem, you know, do it. When I taught B2B marketing in the Rutgers MBA program, we had a semester long project, which was almost that. It was like, I found people, I had friends who were startups or CEOs at startups that were, you know, and often a product searching for a market. And the project would be, okay, get to know them, understand the problems, and define a market they should be targeting, understand the problems, the value prop, and go through all the phases of building the business case, business plan. And so I love that idea, Cory. And maybe it's even something that we could do as a people, to start building some ideas that could share. You could put it in an innovation program where you could get the kids from the business school, the marketing program, working with the MIS type people.
So for a couple semesters, I worked with the NC State computer science group. So the last semester of seniors, the last semester before they graduated, they had to do a project. It was a 16-week project. It was company sponsored. And I worked with those students on projects, building an app, building a product, building something. And that was the first time they've experienced that, is the last semester of their senior year. That should be the first semester of their freshman year, if not earlier, to get used to doing that.
there's a whole upset the apple cart because traditional academia maybe not the right environment to do it. We need to find innovative places that we can do that. Joy, what are you thinking?
Well, it's been a long, long time since I was in school um, as an undergrad. And, undergraduate and especially master's isn't for everyone. So when I went to school, there was no product management courses in undergraduate or graduate. And then my first class, of course, was with Steve with pragmatic marketing. And my answer was actually going to be there's tons of classes out there now. Pragmatic, there's product school, there's general assembly, there's product faculty. I mean, there's product galore.
Well, I've never heard of Product Galore.
I was just lumping all of them, but that is a good idea. And that actually would be, I was going to say the biggest challenge is that there's too much. There's too many options. They're all kind of saying the same thing. But I think it's overwhelming for people who are joining the field and they don't know what they're looking for. They don't know what the difference is. They don't know what's good and what's bad. So
Cory said he's gonna reserve productgalore.edu. Cory, I think at a minimum you have to share that with Joy.
Okay. Fine.
If something happens with it. Sorry, Joy, I cut you off.
No, that's fine. I think though, in terms of education, and I've had this conversation before, I don't think there are product management interns. And I think that that's something that, companies should open up. And I also feel like that there should be, you can't really promise a job when you're at pragmatic or product faculty or product school, but I think that
or Product Galore.
Product Galore.
Maybe that's what we do.
That's what we change. Exactly.
Put the two together because, you've got these people who have learned now, hopefully, best practices, and they should be able to get an entry-level job. And that's always the problem with any graduate is, getting that first job because you don't have the experience. So how do you get the experience if you can't get a job? So maybe combining kind of what Cory said too is build something, do something.
Yeah. That would be actually perfect for a co-op program like somebody like Drexel or Northeastern, where you could take the business school and the engineering school. I love these ideas. Steve, you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm just kind of thunderstruck at Joy's insight, as usual. I mean,
it's Joy.
There are so many companies that seem desperate for product managers. And we know a fair number of product managers who are desperate for work, and why they can't get together is explained by all of the bots in HR. But imagine if a hiring manager said, I'm looking for a good qualified candidate, and I'm going to put a business degree person through some program. I will pay for the program. And you'll come work for us for a year, kind of like the military, come live in the desert for a year or 4 years, and we'll put you through school when you come back. Let's flip that. It's like, I'll put you through school now and you commit to work for my company down the road, assuming you don't flunk out. Right.
Like a residency almost.
Yeah. And so it's a novel approach to solving this manpower problem of putting these two people together. And I think that I'm not sure who the right person is to do that brokering. Maybe it's Product Galore, but it seems like a wonderful thing for the university, I suppose, but also just between, the major training companies and their best customers saying, well, we hire 50 new product managers a year. We'd like to prepay the product managers to go through all your courseware and while they're an intern for us. And it's not unlike, and I'll fling this out and then just completely run away from it. I don't believe that football players should attend classes in college. I think.
Well, you did go to an SEC school, so that makes total sense.
I'm sorry, Tennessee. Anyway, so here's what I think. I think they should be professional players who are playing for tuition, And after their career is over in sports, they can go pick up their college degree. But to try and do both at the same time is ridiculous. So they take stupid classes and they barely pass. And then 5 years later, when they break their leg or they tear their ACL, they have no degree and no career.
Actually, with where you went with that, I actually am starting to think that that's an interesting idea that I would consider. So
I find that very interesting. I hadn't thought about that before.
Look at the big brains on Steve.
Always we look at the big brains on Steve. May, you have been quiet so far. What I want to get is first your thoughts on this education concept, and then we're going to go to your answer. So we'll start with the education concept.
I'm a little cynical about the ability to teach product management because
that's the only thing you're cynical about?
I mean,
wow.
The role of resident cynic has already been taken here, so I got to be careful about what I say. But yes, I am a little cynical about that because so on my current team, my team consists of a couple of people who used to be programmers, but also people who were electrical engineers, former marketers, former delivery people, former lawyers. Like, people come from all over and they each bring something that they've learned across their career journey and get to the point where they feel comfortable saying, I understand context enough to start talking about a product in its own right. And a lot of the people who we get fresh out of school, not necessarily all the time, there's some really good people who just graduate and can like pick things up right away, but the vast majority of context is hard to teach, right? So for me personally, if I had to train someone to be a product manager, I'd rather train someone who's done a year in customer support than someone fresh out of school. I would take the person out of support without any education. They don't even have to have a degree. They don't even have to have a high school diploma. I'd rather take them over an MBA graduate for the most part, just because they have context and they understand something.
Yeah, I mean, but that totally applies with literally every degree.
It's true. Yeah.
It's like we can't. Again, we can't keep saying if you talk to a college kid and they're like, May, I want to be a product manager. Your answer right now would be first get a job in anything and then become a product manager. And they're like, I don't know what classes to take for anything. And I don't know what happens after I get a job. And so it's just like, how do you if you were a guidance counselor for a university or even high school, how would you guide them to that? And I think that and this is just for us product managers, there's all types of careers that have the same issue.
Yeah.
And I just think that we should be better understanding that, even if we don't apply something really quick because of that. These we're going to miss the mark with these universities that are teaching they're teaching other things. They're going to go into maybe other careers. And I just think there's opportunity there because they're asking for it. You know what I'm saying?
So I think there's part of us product professionals, product leaders, who we need to better help promote the role of product management, the career of product management, so people in college and maybe even high school know what it is and they can aspire to it. One, so I agree with that, Jason. Two, what Cory said, we do need to get people firsthand experience doing stuff, right? Building it, interns, whatever. And what made me think about, I spent a lot of time in my early career at GE, and GE has these programs. Why don't you create a program that's a product management program where maybe it's a 2-year program where the first 6 months is customer support. The second 6 months is a product analyst on a team doing something. The next 6 months we can, and while we're doing that, Joy Product Galore can give them training and whatever it means. I mean, and maybe Product Galore is the engine to help all of this happen. I don't know. We'll figure that out later. But I will say I'm much deeper in thought about how do we solve this part of this challenge of the practice of product management than I thought I was going to be, Jason. So I appreciate you bringing it forward and helping us foster this great conversation on it. Yeah. I thought May's challenge was another equal pillar challenge-wise, and we'll get to Cory's also, and then Joy, but recognition, inclusion in the C-suite, right? Getting the product to be viewed as this equal in the organization, huge. We've talked about this in the past and sort of, how do we do that? Joy, talk to me about your thoughts on that.
About
Or
inclusion
May.
or May.
Oh, not Joy, May. I'm sorry. Two short names.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
It's
May.
hard to be a woman, No, Grant, you're fine. I think that, so I've worked for a lot of mega corporations, and I think that the leadership of the organization where the product matters needs to have representation at that level of leadership, right? So for example, in a company where you do a lot of different investments, like, BlackRock, you probably don't, product probably doesn't sit up there as much. But when you're talking about the specific arm that invests in a suite of products that are related, then you definitely want product at that leadership level. I'm not sure how it works on like mega corporations at the very, very top, but in terms of where decision making impacts product or your portfolio of products, there should be representation at that level. And sometimes like it's just the CEO and the CTO because the company is small enough, then sure, yeah, as long as the CTO can speak to and represent product at that level. However, if the CTO is just concerned about using the best and the brightest cloud servers or whatever it is, then maybe you probably want some more product influence at that level as well. Like similarly, the CEO might represent the product, but there comes a point where they get so caught up in all the day-to-day running of an organization that, like, talking to investors, talking to stakeholders or whoever it might be, that they don't have time to invest in the product direction. And I think that's when you need product to get involved.
I love that idea. Joy, since I'd asked both of you to comment on this, I appreciate your thoughts on this.
So what I've noticed, just following along with May, is I'm shocked at the number of companies that don't have a chief product officer. Like they have chief people officers and they have chief strategy officers and chief revenue officers. Well, where's your chief product officer? Like, talk about, having, instilling this in the C-suite. Well, why don't we have a chief product officer in the C-suite to give it visibility?
No, I agree. The problem, I've seen CPOs who are just a CTO taking a CPO role, and they're saying it, and we're back to that situation where the product management reports the CTO because they think through that lens. So I get it. Ideally, a chief strategy officer, if they're really doing strategy, they should be market focused, and there's a role. There's a definite dovetail for that. But it's tough. To May's point, at a super gigantic corporation, I would think that you don't need a CPO at the corporate level, right? Maybe product operations at a corporate level because you want to streamline how you do it, but maybe at a division or portfolio level is where it would come in. But this idea of the CPO at that, and to your point, I'm going to use your point, Joy, to pivot into Cory. Cory said the biggest problem is in understanding that products are likely the biggest way our customers interface with our company. And if products are the biggest way that companies or customers interact with our company, shouldn't we have somebody at that level who's responsible? Cory, talk to me about that.
I mean, what a concept, right? This is not 1960 anymore. This is not even 1980 or even 2000. Products and the way that people interact and buy products now, for the most part, are digital, or there's some digital component to those products. And you cannot build digital products the same way you built products in the 1950s. You just can't. They don't even prototype the same. So to think that you can try to do things the way you've always done it, or the way you've been taught in school 40 years ago, that doesn't work anymore. And I think you see that. You see these startup companies that are able to move fast and get incredible value and market share and things like that. And these old dinosaur companies that cannot change their model of thinking into a product-based model. They still want to do sales or marketing or anything else. They can't think in terms of product is the most important thing to get our customers on board. They think of product as the IT group that builds the thing that we tell them to so that we can get this new deal. That model doesn't work anymore, I don't think.
I don't think you would find any disagreement in this room.
I disagree with you, Cory. No, I'm kidding.
Go ahead. You wouldn't be the first one.
Again.
But we do, but strangely, we do continue to see it, right?
Oh, yeah.
I recently chatted with a product manager who's working for a president who's writing user stories. And the user stories are exactly what you think they would be. Build me this feature.
As a CEO, I want this thing so that I can get my yacht.
Yeah. And the way I do it is like, you know, as a user, I want this feature so I can have this feature I want. And so they're like, you know, must log on using Face ID and touch whatever, you know, and you're like, those are specs, but what problem you're trying to solve, right? But it does blow my mind the number of times I see people who say, we're going to sell it first and build a second. And then, you know, the minions down in the factory will just crank the little widget machine and crunch out some code. I mean, how hard could it be, right? It's just code.
And it's not even the minions down in the basement. It's the people that we've never seen and don't know, that don't speak the same language as us, that we're going to pay 1/10 of the cost to build the thing.
So you're talking about the innies in Severance?
The innies in Severance. I haven't seen that, so I don't know that.
That's a topical reference that won't hold up over time. Well done.
Oh.
Maybe.
So that's, I mean, there's two concepts there, right? It's product versus project thinking, and then it's business versus IT versus the company. And I see those displayed in almost everything I've done in the last X number of years.
Yeah, that's really sad.
And I've had an argument with a lot of people that strategy really is product, right? Product management is about what markets are we going to, what problems are we solving, right? How do we leverage differentiation? Unfortunately, most chief strategy officers are like more about the process of doing strategy, the planning, than they are about actually building the strategy. But if you had a strategy officer who was really talking about markets and products and differentiation and how do we create value, then, you know, maybe that solves our problem, and strategy becomes product, or product becomes strategy, the strategic role, and we can go some other way. But Cory, I love what you're saying. Joy, you did not answer the question this week. I wanted to give you a chance to, you know, to chime in, to either double down on one of the answers we had from Jason, May, or Cory, or, you know, put something yourself together.
But you have only one word you can use.
If anybody could do that, it would be Joy.
Or two. You're the queen of brevity on our community here.
Now I'm going to be silent for 10 seconds, Grant, while I come with my... So one word, ambiguity, because in my opinion, product management has exploded. And there are so many product managers, and companies that you wouldn't even expect to have product managers, and they have a lot of them, and they're doing all this weird stuff. And so it's just like, you know, what is product management? We all should know, but a lot of companies, product management means different things.
Even within the same company, it means different things.
Yeah.
See, Steve, you put the challenge out there, and she came up. And see, here's
I
you know,
out in my mind.
Well, but back to instead of taking 10 seconds of silence, she had the skill to sort of talk and laugh while she thought, and there was not a gap, and we weren't all just sitting there waiting. So I appreciate that. What a great thought about all these things, whether it's the education aspect of it, whether it's the executive C-suite of it, or what Cory's, you know, realization that the product is where customers touch us. We should be thinking about that. I've had the same conversation with brand people, right? And to Joy's point, because of all this, there's ambiguity in what the role is. And until we can cut through that, the biggest challenge is ambiguity. Until we can cut through that ambiguity of what it is, we're struggling. And maybe we can cut through it, and maybe we can, you know, start helping college kids and high school kids understand what product management is why they would want to do it, and build, and Product Galore can build a product that helps connect everybody and make this happen.
The
So
glory of product at productgalore.com.
I feel like this is a Showtime or HBO show ready to burst. So we're going to go to the poll now, and the question we asked in the poll was, which is the biggest risk to the future of the practice of product management? And I said in the poll, the options were product and development UX people not understanding the value. And I've gone off on that many times in the past few weeks. Sales and marketing people not understanding the value. Business leaders not understanding the value. Product management people not helping others understand the value, or other, it depends. And I made a bet with Steve when we put this out there. I said, my bet is that product management people not helping others understand the value was going to win. When we've had similar conversations in the past, we've always pointed the fingers back. We've always said, when you're pointing at somebody, there's 4 coming back at you, right? And we were close. I voted for that. Steve, what did you vote for?
Well, actually, I don't even know if I'm cheating to win the bet here. I voted for business leaders not understanding the value. But my second choice, and probably now that I'm talking it through, my first choice would have been product management people not helping others, which therefore would have made that a tie. That one vote would swing it, right? But it is funny the number of times I encounter situations where people go, what you have to understand about salespeople is, and what you have to understand about marketing people is. And I'm like, where's the part where somebody asks here's how you can work better with your product managers. But I guess in the end, if business leaders don't understand the value, then product management is probably doomed in that organization.
So this is a first for me, where I don't even have to rationalize how I win the poll. My partner, Steve, did it for me. So I appreciate you, Steve, for that. Jason, how did you vote?
Business leaders not understanding the value. I feel like it's always safe just to go with whatever Steve says. Anyway.
But then he changed his vote. Are you going to change the vote too?
No, I'm not that waffly. But I would say, this is interesting because I don't always use product management to help others understand the value, because I feel like we do have to be our own advocates, but it's very interesting when you have a third party be your advocate. And so in situations where I needed the leadership to understand the value we bring, I had my lead developers and engineers talk to leadership.
Which is a great idea, but isn't that a little backwards? Shouldn't you be able to?
I should, but sometimes no matter how you reword or rephrase things, they're just taking your word for it. And right. if they're not getting through to it, you have to go to your customer. My customer is obviously the customer in the market, but also my customer is development.
Okay.
We have to be making sure, back to Cory's point, we got to be making sure we're bringing them the right things, and it's comprehensive. They understand it, and they have value in the success of the company, and they're also vested in it. In order to do that, you might need them to come to the table for you, and they'll happily do that if you're working with them and they become advocates of you. And the opposite is also true, right? Where you become advocates of development and say, this is their purpose. They need to be part of understanding the value of the business, and then they'll want to develop because they want to have part of that success. You can't just put them in a closet and make them code. And so I think all the dynamics of all those different groups that work together to deliver product to the market that need to be advocates for each other, and they might have to talk to leadership separately.
So you just made me start thinking. I'm going to bring some stuff back from the beginning of the conversation. When these business leaders, these executive leaders, are these people from Harvard Business School and McKinsey who have no practical experience, and they're full of hubris and ignorance and don't care about anybody but themselves, maybe it is the business leaders who are the problem because they're not willing to open their mind and think about it. Maybe I should switch back now that Steve is done and I can win and Steve can. I'm kidding. No, but you made me start thinking about that. Cory, you had actually answered business leaders as well. Talk to me about your thoughts.
Yeah, I read into that business leaders equals the company leaders.
Yeah.
And I am big on culture, as Jason was talking about. And if the culture isn't there to support product and all the right things that we should be doing as product managers. Because I've worked in places where I think I've done the right things and we've had some bit of success, but it wasn't sustainable because the organization, the leadership, and the culture, regardless of what they put on the wall in a poster, didn't believe in those things. So it wasn't sustainable. It failed. It was destined to fail. You struggled against it. But it's, if they don't set that culture right, because as I said, sales and marketing is going to do what they do. We should be working daily with development and design and those things. So and we're constantly talking to people. So of those answers, the culture of the company and where that's set is really what I would want to see.
Resonating with me also. Joy.
I did not respond to the poll, but if I were to answer now, it's whatever the one that had the word sales in it.
Sales and marketing people don't understand the value.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be the first voter there. I thought Steve was possibly somebody who would go there because always he makes fun of sales for not getting it and understanding. So,
well, actually, no, I misunderstood. I want salespeople to do what we hired salespeople to do: sell products we have to people who want to buy it. And where I get upset is when they sell things we don't have, who are to people who are not in our market, and then say, what is wrong with your roadmap? Why did you not build the thing that I just thought of this second as I was selling it? I've never worked for a custom shop, and that's a different value. I mean, it's a whole different business model. And that's where my baggage is. If sales would sell what we have to people who want to buy it, then I'm delighted with salespeople. And I don't care if they understand the value of product management, because they do understand the value of product management when we give them a product that sells itself. And they just take their checks and go to Hawaii every year for President's Club.
Shut up and take my money.
Yeah.
Those are the people that take the money. That's it.
Yeah.
Joy, any last thoughts on your vote?
The reason I would answer sales is I feel like sales feels like they should just be able to go straight to development and say, I know we don't need product management because I know what needs to be.
I've talked to ones of people. It's time for us to start developing a new product.
All right. I actually get that. And when you've had that experience, it sticks with you.
And I agree with you. I think the only time a salesperson should talk to a developer is when they're handing them a beer and saying, thank you for all your hard work. There is no other time that a salesperson and a developer should ever be in the same room.
All right.
It's late in the day, so I guess I must be on a bigger tear than usual.
I'll try it again. May. What did you vote for?
I had to put in an intentional pause just in case. I voted for business leaders understanding the value, because everything else can be fixed. But even no matter how hard you try to help leadership understand the value, by saying, like, it goes back to Jason's point, like when you go to business leaders and try to prove your value, it's so much more effective for someone else to tell the story. Because like as product managers, our job is to understand the market. And if you call yourself the market experts to the business leaders, what are you implying to the rest of the business leaders, right? That they are not the experts. So you go to your head of services and you say, well, I'm the product manager. I've done a lot of research. I work with our research team to learn about the market. And he says, I deal with our market every day. What are you talking about? Like, I am the expert. So I think they need to, like, the business leaders really need to understand what product management is in order for us to get their support. Because like we carry their interests into what we build into our roadmap. And if they don't understand that value, then when people talk about funding a tech organization, everyone almost automatically goes to devs. if you are in an organization that likes things to be pretty, maybe designers, but product manager doesn't show up, right? Unless if it's someone who's familiar with how a tech organization actually works. So I think it's really important for the business leaders, the people in charge, the people deciding on the funding, to understand what product management is and why we're so expensive.
No.
And by extension, like why you actually need product ops to make things happen as you scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a ton of sense. And, I think, Jason, Cory, and May have made a very vital point. And when I voted for product, it was very much of a, it's our role to advocate for, it's our role to show. But if the corporate culture is such that it doesn't matter what you do, it depends, right? It depends on the situation and where do we need to go with that. So
Never vote for other.
I made the mistake once where everybody voted for other. I'm trying to get better at my choices when it goes forward.
You should just have that as the only option, see what happens.
I have one more little rantette in this little venue. My friend Rich Mironov recently wrote a book, wrote an article that really stuck with me. And he said, one of the biggest problems in product management is we fight politics with philosophy. When sales brings in a deal of the day for a one-off for a customer outside of our market, we say things like, oh, but we're supposed to be market driven. That's a philosophical answer to do you want to take this big bundle of money? And I think it's just an interesting perspective that if the leadership does not understand this idea of building for the market and building for the many, and they're just looking at, look, somebody held out money. First, you take the money and then you say, what would you like us to give you in exchange for this money? If that's their philosophy, you can't come back and fight them with philosophy. You have to fight them with, and fight is a really strong word here, but fight them with logic of, because we're building this one thing for big company A, we're not able to meet the promises we made over the last 6 months to big company B through J. And suddenly we're approaching this disconnect with logic rather than philosophy.
I love the way you looked at that and talked about it. Thank you, Steve.
I read an article about
it. Yes, you will. So the first question where we're going to get to, maybe the only question we'll get to today outside of the lightning round, what should we as product leaders be doing to overcome these challenges and risks besides creating product galore?
I'm done.
That's my only idea, so I don't know.
Mine too. I think we're done. We can wrap this up. Lightning round.
Maybe we can get to the next question. Jason, what do you think? What else can we be doing? What should we do?
But yeah, this expanding on as product leaders, I think what we need to do is network, reach out, be a part of communities where there may not be product management representation. So development communities, UX communities, those kind of things. See what's going on there. And like I said, if you have the opportunity and your company does internships, let's bring that out. And I think we just need to get outside the product manager community and get into communities that could use some product management love to really see where they're, where we begin and where we end and they begin.
I love that.
I think that's what we can do to overcome some of these.
I love that. Joy, or is product lore your only answer?
I like Jason's answer about getting out of the product management sphere, but also my answer would be to do more in the product management sphere, like participate in product camps, which I just happened to do 2 weekends ago, and other.
You helped host it. You're not just participating.
My company, Space, hosted it. But just become more vocal in whatever blogs or other communities that there might be in product management to lend our knowledge and expertise.
I love that. May.
if you build it, they will come. So I think by building great products and great organizations and having people will come and go no matter how great whatever it is that you're doing. So I think by giving people great experiences product management, doing things not necessarily right, but well, I think does a huge step to take our discipline forward. I mean, as Joy said, like sharing, and as Jason said, sharing outside our circles as well, and really just evangelizing. Our group just expanded to include the IT group in this megacorp right now, and like listening to IT people talk about how to build is terrifyingly waterfall sometimes. So just like I talked to my VP and I said it's time to do some evangelizing about like what product management is. So I think that's something that we could all do,
No.
no matter who it is.
And at first, I thought you were going to say we should be building a baseball field and a cornfield. And
I don't understand cornfields. I live in the city.
well, you said if you build it, they will come. It's a classic Field of Dreams reference. Cory,
So I was told yesterday that I need to speak my mind more, so I'm going to try that to this question. And I'm honest when I say this. We should go where we are understood, valued, and wanted, and we should let those old ignorant companies die.
okay, survival of the fittest.
Why struggle upstream when you're not going to get anywhere?
Just
Strong
give up on
words to follow.
that. Yeah. Steve, how about you?
Well, I think I agree with the evangelizing, including, to Cory's point, evangelizing within a company until you say, you know what, it's not going to work here. Move on. Take as many people with you. Save as many as you can. But I'm still thinking about the number of times that I have seen a video or read an article that I shared down with my team, but did not share up to my president. And, I'm like the one I just mentioned from Rich Mironoff about whatever he wrote about most recently. There's so many that I'm like, so-and-so needs to hear this, right? When I've been working on a video series with this in mind, watch this video with your president so that your president understands what the hell you're talking about. This idea of being market focused, this idea of being procedural, having a product ops organization that standardizes so that every roadmap we see looks like it came from the same company, right? Get standard on roles, that product management is not just sitting down in the factory punching out JIRA tickets, right? I mean, so I think the more, so I guess my recommendation is to, as a good leader, I did share articles to help my team improve. And in retrospect, I did not often enough share articles up for my organization to get a better understanding of product management.
That's great. We need to be working both upstream and downstream, as you said. Great way to look at that. We got a little time before lightning round. So, what is your aspiration for the state of the state of the practice of product management in 5 years? So, if we are successful, right? If we overcome these challenges, what is the state of product practice in 5 years? I'm going to start with Joy.
I don't.
Less ambiguity.
Yes, please. Reduce ambiguity. There you go.
Reduced ambiguity. All right, I'll go with that. May.
I think this is going to happen regardless, but like going back to my statement earlier, more product representation at the top, but also just as as a woman who is not white, I think having more diversity in product leadership is important as well.
Yep.
And I don't say that because, it would make it easier for me to get up top, but also I think that it's just product management is often also seen as the business of a tech company, and when you talk about business leaders, it's also often very traditionally people who have MBAs. So I think it's also good to see the types of people who end up in that position. So maybe not classically people who do end up in C-suite positions, but people who've done product management, who've built some amazing products. I want to point to people like I think Deb Liu, CEO of Ancestry, who was the chief of product at Facebook for a while. I think it's really inspiring to see her posts in communities like Women in Product, and to see other great people in positions of leadership and like sharing their stories and challenges along the way.
I actually, I'm going to double down on that. There was a Twitter argument between Tom Peters, he's Tom Peters, right? In Search of Excellence, one of the greatest business thinkers of the past, 30 years, and Paul Graham, who's done an amazing stuff with, the incubators and everything, Y Combinator and that type of stuff. And Tom Peters has sort of posted this list of things that he knows to be true. And one of them is that women make better business leaders than men. And Paul Graham challenged him on it. And Tom Peters said, it's not my opinion. The research shows it. It backs it up. So, I fully support that. I think the best companies I've ever worked with have had a diverse leadership team. And diversity does wonders for a product team and for a leadership team. And so I wholeheartedly support that. I think you hit a nail on the head there, May. So thank you for sharing that. Jason.
Yeah, I'm going to double down on what I've been saying this whole time. I think my aspiration for the state of practice of product management in 5 years.
Yeah, it's a little. I should have thought about how I wrote that. It's a little word.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Would be to connect down career, to talent down career versus up career.
Create that pipe.
About CPOs. Yeah.
Create that pipeline to get people to us, not just thinking about where do we go. I get it, Cory.
So in 5 years, I would like to see the practice of product management and the skills of product managers be seen as necessary and essential by companies as accounting is today. It's fundamental.
It's interesting because JJ Rory had mentioned that on the podcast Steve and I did with her, and somebody had put that in, I think Dominic Signorell from Otis Elevators put that in one of the answers for the first one. So it truly making it a practice, right? That's viewed like a profession like everybody else. That's great. Steve?
But can I add to Cory? It's funny this is tangential, but it's funny over the past 2 years when I've had companies talking to me about product management, I feel like they're almost abusing the product manager who would maybe be looking for a career or that type of thing to be able to do anything. And I think it's going, Cory, it could be going the opposite direction even, where they're like, we'll just have a product manager do it because they could do it all. They're generalists and they understand.
We're jack of all trades.
But they put you in positions that's really not that of a product manager, maybe a business manager or a project manager. And so it's like, we know the value of product manager. We'll stick them in whatever slot we have open outside of development, and they can do that, even though it's not aligned with a good career path for them.
They're a utility player versus a specialized practice. And
so that could be a danger too.
Yeah, that goes back to Joy's ambiguity. If you're doing that, the role's too ambiguous, and we need to make it less ambiguous. Steve.
Well, I've been working with a fair number of smaller companies over the last few months, and I don't know if it's the smaller companies or if it's the investors that they have in those companies. They absolutely have a product manager. It's like, let's go around the room. Do we have a salesperson? Do we have a developer? Do we have a product manager? Do we have, something else I can't think of? And it was just like, of course you have a product manager. I mean, if you have a developer and a salesperson, I'm sure you have a product manager, because of course you do. You know, I mean, and it's, I love that. I love encountering that in the startups in particular that I'm working with. And that's where I want to see us in 5 years, that of course you have a product manager. And, you know, as one of you said, of course you have an accountant. You know, I mean, of course you do, as opposed to, why in the world would I need one of those?
And I'm going to throw in sort of a little Jason and Joy. It's not ambiguous what their role is. It's very well defined, and they're doing it, and they're allowed to do it. So,
true. And
all right.
In our work, seeing tremendous changes in some of the companies we've worked with, where suddenly the product managers are empowered, and they're empowering their teams, and they're seeing results like, in ways that they were not expecting to see in very short period of time.
This goes to the conversation you and I had with a private equity partner about one of our clients, and how he was like, you know, the change that we've seen in them because they've shifted to the strategic, unambiguous role of product management in the past 6 months is night and day. And if you can hear a private equity investor saying that, maybe that's my aspiration, right? That the investors get it and understand it, so it's going to push it down, whether it's VC or private equity.
Well, those companies grow up and become the ones that kill those waterfall monoliths that still exist.
To Cory's
we're
point
spending
earlier,
our energies with these little companies that are become medium companies and big companies, and finally, you know, the next Apple.
Yeah. So, wow, what a great conversation. We got one left. We got the lightning round left. And the question is, what is the outcome of a strong practice of product management? And I'm going to start with Joy. What is the outcome? What?
Profitability.
Profitability. I love that. Cory.
I don't have to talk about it anymore.
Cory doesn't have to talk about it anymore. I love that. May.
May's just cracking.
I'm laughing too hard. Easier to hop between jobs, like to do a similar role outside.
Easier.
You don't have to be as picky.
Yeah. Easier to hop between jobs. Jason.
I was going to take Joey's answer of EBITDA, but I'll say happy customers.
Happy customers. I love that. Steve.
I'm going to quote myself. Our goal is to turn good ideas into successful products systematically.
I love that. And gosh, I'm going to go with the fact that we are truly market focused in what we're doing and what we're not doing. And so we're doing the right things and we're doing them right. So, what a great conversation. You know, as I said at the beginning, an all-star panel. And boy, did everybody bring the heat. Joy, Cory, Jason, May, my partner Steve, thank you very much. And we do this every week in the community, right? On Mondays, the question goes in. And my boy Jason was finally back in the first answer. It made me very happy this week. On Wednesdays, we have a poll, and we had a ton of answers this week. And on Fridays, we have these wonderful conversations. Thank you guys so much for an amazing conversation. I'm now, my mind's spinning. I'm thinking of different things. Always happens on these calls. So thank you very much. And we'll see you guys next week in the community.